This is Sawyer Robertson, and you're listening to the Bearcast on SIGM365.com.
Welcome into the Bearcast on SIGM365.com. I'm your host, Grayson Grundhoefer, and today I'm here with Colt Barber as we are recapping Baylor's massive win over SMU in double overtime, 48-45. Colt, I mean, there's a lot of places that I know we're going to get to, but I think just kind of taking a step back and watching this game, watching it unfold, it kind of felt like Baylor's season was on the line in a lot of ways. Even though we know it wasn't, it just really had the feeling of that. And so very important that Baylor was able to bounce back, find a way to get this done, scratch and claw to a win. No matter how ugly it looked at times, they were able to get the win and come through at the key moments, which they couldn't do against Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think it felt like if they don't get this done, and you start off, with a stupid play that was the play of LeVar Thornton and the tip ball. And like from that moment, they're behind the 8 ball. And I felt like almost if that play doesn't happen, I'm curious how that game goes, because that just almost put this added, to me, watching the game, put this added pressure on, oh crap, like we've got to, like, what have we gotten ourselves into? And it felt like if it's going to go wrong, it went wrong. And it did ultimately in that game. It felt like everything, from injuries to the weird punt, blocking the back punt return, et cetera. It just like play after play was just putting Baylor up in really difficult spots. It was a weird game. It was a fun game. It was a weird game. But throughout it, it's just like, man, if they can't get this one done, where does the rest of it come from? And not bowl eligibility like that was never on my mind. It's just the expectations are out the window at that point. And then they get down 14. And at that point, 8 minutes ago or whatever it was, you just feel like this one's over. Like I didn't think truly that everything that needed to go right was going to go right, but it did. And maybe that means this is a team that's destined to do really well this season. And it was that, the football god saying, hey, we got you on this one after some of these weird things have happened. But what a terrific comeback. I mean, I was going back and thinking about which game, what was another game that had this type of comeback to that extent in that short of amount of time. And there's not a lot of those that are in the books. Like for anyone that watched this, great. Like you experienced something that was really cool. And I just couldn't really wrap my head around what was another time that was like this one that we saw on Saturday.
I mean, the one that I think of, and it's probably because I actually went to the game.
That besides that one.
Game.
Yeah.
But that one was, I mean, that was another level of just a miracle. Like this one didn't feel like a true miracle. It felt more like, Baylor actually tightened up, made the plays that they had to ultimately win the game and get back into it. The UCF game was just like, man, nothing went right.
That was two bad teams.
True.
Both bad teams.
Very, very true. But I mean, UCF was a bowl team that year, but they didn't have their quarterback in that game. And so they were not very good. And, it was one of those first half, everything went in UCF's favor, even though Baylor was moving the football. And then second half, everything went in Baylor's favor. So it was kind of a balanced game. This was more so just felt like, I don't know if I would say that these two teams were completely even. I kind of felt like Baylor was the better team for most of the night.
Yeah, no, I felt that way.
I felt like they were, but I also understand the other side of it. It's like SMU made a lot of plays, hit on a lot of explosives. You can make the argument that they were the better team as well, but I do feel like there were more self-inflicted wounds by Baylor than there were by SMU, and that just kind of late in the game flipped a little bit.
Yeah, and nothing against the explosive plays by SMU, but starting off the top, I mean, LeVar Thornton, and he almost undercut that ball a little too much. Like, I almost think he's like, oh, I'm getting this one. And then he undercuts it a little too much, gets off balance, and it's a touchdown. And nothing against those explosive plays that they had. The one later where Carl Williams, playing one of his 5 snaps on the game, comes up from deep safety, bites on a double move, and they scored another one, 75 yards. But those weren't sustainable in my mind, the way Baylor was moving the football on offense. Like Kevin Jennings did a great job in those moments, but they had 150 yards or whatever it was on those two plays. They put up 458 in a double overtime game. So like what they did in that first half and then that late explosive, like was a entirely different offense than what Baylor just ate them up the entirety of the game. Truthfully, I thought Baylor played a decent defensive game outside of 3 explosive plays. And that was my biggest takeaway. And we'll talk more about this, but like you said, was Baylor the better team throughout this game? I felt like they were, mainly because of SMU could not do anything to stop Baylor offensively. And defensively, I felt like Baylor actually played a better game than SMU did, despite this being a 38-38 or whatever, 35-35 at the end of regulation, 38-38 at the end of regulation. But a lot of positives, a lot of negatives to take away, but absolutely barn burner to win. And it really kind of sets the next 2 weeks up to go into the Arizona State game. Thankful for Sam for this next week, though. I mean, that's a huge for all the injuries that Baylor's had.
Real quick, Sawyer Robertson has something to remind you about.
Want the latest information about your favorite team? Try out SIGM 365 premium content the next 3 months for just $5 by clicking the link below.
And now back to the Bearcast. It definitely is. I think your point is probably true. I don't know that it's necessarily Baylor played a good game on defense. I just think their defense played better than SMU's.
Right.
So
exactly.
So yeah. I'm not sure that is necessarily predicting going forward. Like I still think they're very flawed defensively. Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious. And so, for me, I think in the first half, SMU did a pretty good job of stopping the run game. And I think there were a couple of problems that Baylor was running into, and you and I were texting about this a little bit.
Yeah. So
yes, SMU was loading the box a lot. And for some reason, Baylor was trying to run into that too many times. And so then even when they didn't load the box, they were still not winning the one-on-one matchups with the offensive line. So it was kind of twofold. Right. And then you also had the problem of, and this happened actually throughout the game, Sawyer Robertson I know that there's something wrong with him running, whether it's the coaching staff telling him not to run or he's not 100%, which he doesn't look 100% running, but who knows? I'm not going to speculate on it, but he made the bad read multiple times. Like, dude, you have to keep it on some of these when it's an obvious keeper, and he just wouldn't. So SMU wasn't threatened by that. So I felt like Baylor kind of got in their own way a little bit with trying to force the issue running the football. And then you saw them just change into, SMU is going to play, with these guys in the box. They're going to try to stop the run. That's fine. We're going to eat them up in the pass game. And that's exactly what they did. And one thing that I'm going to write about tomorrow that was a great adjustment from the first game. It kind of speaks to Baylor as a whole, just how they can attack certain matchups and expose teams, especially in the secondary in the early part of this year. So in the first game against Auburn, Auburn had very good cornerbacks. And so what Baylor did was they attacked the middle of the field. They attacked their matchups on linebackers and safeties. Michael Trigg had a huge game. Cole Wilson had a huge game. And you saw that Ashton Hawkins and Josh Cameron were a little less involved, in those situations. In this game, it flipped because SMU has good safeties. They trust their safeties a whole lot more.
Yeah, very good safeties.
Yeah, and Michael Trigg left the game. And so all of that taken into account, Baylor attacked their cornerbacks in man-to-man coverage time and time again. And then when they went into cover 2, Sawyer was also attacking the zones as well. But man, it just was really cool to see just a complete flip in 1 week and see them be able to attack various matchups. And again, it made up for the run game because of that adjustment. And because I think Jake Spavital just said, okay, we need to take what the defense is giving us now, and we just need to throw the football. And Sawyer was super efficient at that.
Yeah. I mean, it was for the second week in a row. The run game's eliminated schematically, however you want to talk about it, and Baylor just went to the pass game, and it worked. I actually went through and charted this because we were texting about it yesterday. I wasn't paying attention to it throughout the game. I was, but not really. You don't watch it that way as you're watching it live. When Baylor had even numbers, so 5 blockers for 5 defenders or 6 blockers for 6 defenders, they averaged 5.4 yards per carry in the game. When they were down 1 defender, or 1 blocker, so they're -1 in the box, they averaged 2.6 yards per carry. And then beyond that, it was 1.3 yards per carry. But if they were plus, they averaged over 5 yards a carry. So plus or even over 5 yards a carry. But SMU, majority of the game, had at least 1 more defender. So if Baylor brought 7 at the line of scrimmage, if they had 2 tight ends in there blocking, then they were matching it or exceeding it every single time. And I don't know how long teams are going to be able to do that for, because at this point, Sawyer Robertson's saying, I'm going to kill you if you do this. Like, I'm going to throw it on you. And that's 2 good defensive back teams that Baylor's face now. And you mentioned kind of opposites of safeties and corners, but they have played teams that can challenge them. And Sawyer's just been phenomenal. I was really, Josh Cameron was, you've seen him do it, but in this game, like some of the catches, he had some that I think that probably they're off, their timing was off a little bit where Sawyer and him didn't connect early. But once they got in that rhythm, man, him and Josh were just, some of those throws that Sawyer made were incredible. The one that he threw it over the corner in front of the safety on the sideline, Josh scores a touchdown, was just like that. There's not many college football quarterbacks that make that throw, and he made it look easy, and Josh made the catch look easy. But yeah, I mean, the run game is like, at what point do defenses, are they not able to do that? Which one, obviously Samford's not, but which teams coming? Oklahoma State, I would not expect them to be able to do that. UCF, no. Like, I'm going down the list. Baylor's faced 2 of them, and there might be 4 of them on the schedule that can do both. And I don't know. I'm not looking at the schedule right now, but I'm excited to see when teams are not able to match up in both the way that SMU and Auburn were.
Right. And I think that the teams that you're speaking to, so you're talking about the teams that can actually take away the run, I think that's the first part.
Well, not sacrifice. I feel like they can hold up in both areas.
Right. I think the only teams are Arizona State, who I think we'll talk more about this at the end of the show. But I will say that we do have a lot to discuss Big 12-wise. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I will say that as far as teams that can actually match them up front without having to load the box, I truly think it's Arizona State and Utah. And that's probably it. Maybe Houston, but Houston just doesn't have the offense to match it. So it's
scare you.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different, but we'll get to that in a minute because I do have some Big 12 thoughts that we can definitely talk about. So, so Josh was phenomenal. Josh played so well in this game. Ashton just was open.
Yeah.
All game.
Scary moment too with his. I thought he broke a collarbone. I mean, it's the way he fell on it. I was like, and then he was like in play 2 plays later. I'm like, okay, what the heck happened?
He's good.
He was good. That was kind of scary though.
Yeah, he looked special, and he was playing a lot out wide too. He was doing his thing out there. He looked great. Scary to see Michael Trigg not play in the second half. Definitely sounded some alarms because he's so important to their offense. And as much as I love Matthew Klopfenstein as a player, and as much as he has improved, especially as a blocker, he's just not the receiving threat that Trigg is.
Game.
Yeah. So quick shout out to Klopfenstein though. He had a great just like player moment where you just watch and you go, man, this is a team guy. Josh Cameron caught a pass down the field from Sawyer Robertson, and he was getting tackled about 5 yards away from the end zone. Yeah. And Klopfenstein ran all the way down the field and ended up shoving him into the end zone and getting it to be a touchdown. That's a heck of a moment that no one's really going to talk about, that it was so important. I mean, anything can happen if you get stopped at the 5. You might get stuffed. You might not score. You might turn the ball over. And instead they get a touchdown because of that. So cool moment for him. But Michael Trigg is pretty irreplaceable for this offense as far as their ability to attack in so many different ways. It seems like he's going to be okay. I don't know if he'll play this week, but it seems like he's going to be okay.
You would hope that, you hope that he doesn't have to play this week and Baylor's fine. That's the expectation. Regardless if he plays, they should be fine. But there's a lot of guys that need to get healthy. He's one of them.
Yeah, they got a few guys like that. I think that, in other ways, this was a big moment for, again, Cameron and Hawkins. And then also the guy who I continue to think, man, this guy's really showing a lot in the limited snaps that he's playing. But Kobe Prentice is, every time he touches the football, he's basically 50-50 he's going to score a touchdown or not, because he's got 3 touchdowns on just 6 receptions this season. He's been a big play threat. He's been electric when he's caught the football. He's exposing defenses down the field. To have a guy like that just subbing in to your rotation is pretty
Yeah.
remarkable. He's a very, very good player and kind of underrated just because he's not playing as many snaps as some of these other guys.
Yeah, 6 receptions, 7 targets, 3 touchdowns, 101 yards, 16.8 yards per reception. Grades out really well. But you talk about this receiver group, and I actually wrote about this in my Between the Lines piece, but it's just like they could have theoretically a new guy get 100 yards. I mean, they've done it. They already have 3 different 100 yards receivers. Trigg had 99 against Auburn. So in 2 games, they have 4 guys with 100 yards, which is just crazy to think of. And some of that's because you're not running the football like you want to right now, and that those numbers will go away some. But I feel like Kobe he's not forgotten by defenses, but I think he is. Like, I think there's an aspect of that. It's kind of like the Auburn game. Like, it was like everybody was so focused on Trigg or whoever's on the field. Like, Kobe just ran right between 3 defenders and nobody picked him up. But I think he's going to get a ton of targets like that, where it's just kind of like the touchdown play against SMU. And not that if that's Michael Trigg running across the middle, he's not wide open like that. So he runs the slant and he just literally in stride, Sawyer finds him. And I think that he's going to benefit from that greatly throughout this entire season. But he's really good too. Like, you give him the touches and targets that Cole and Ashton are getting. Maybe he doesn't produce as much. Maybe he's not to that level. But maybe he is. Like, he's just not getting the touches right now. And I think hopefully that he is fine with that, and he takes this. And I mean, heck, he scored 3 touchdowns in 2 games. So if he continues to get hit in spots like that, Sawyer's going to find him.
And it's become pretty clear that Baylor is going to ride their 4 guys, I guess, now. So it's basically Cole
Trigg,
Wilson, Josh Cameron, Ashton Hawkins, Kobe Prentice in the receiver room. But yes, Trigg at tight end, of course. And Klopp coming in as a blocker they're going to use him like
that. But those are their pass catchers. I mean, those are their pass catchers. Yeah.
And I mean, like, we heard so much about Lewis Brown this offseason, and he comes in and drops a perfect throw from Sawyer Robertson. And so that was a little discouraging. Jaden Porter hasn't been on the field a whole lot.
2 snaps for Jaden. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. Just kind of like you've heard it all off season about, especially those 2 guys, and the steps that they've taken, and Baylor's just rolling with the guys who are playing well right now. And it's clear who they trust at the moment. And so we'll see if that changes. I'm hoping this week against Samford that them, as well as some of the freshmen, get on the field and can make an impact and gain some confidence this week. But it's been interesting to watch Baylor just kind of shrink that rotation and say, these are the guys that we're going to ride, and these are the guys who we have the most confidence in right now.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't want anyone to get injured, obviously. You want to see the other guys, but I mean, when you're talking about 4 guys, 5, I would still say Lewis, he's still getting snaps. He's just not getting targets. I mean, it's not what the top 4 guys are getting, but it's 5 guys. I mean, considering sometimes you're playing 2, sometimes you're playing 3, and sometimes you might go to 4 wide receivers, but 5 guys is a lot of guys that you're potentially playing. And they're going to, at some point, someone else is going to have to step up. If it's Lewis, getting more targets, someone's going to get hurt. He's going to have to Josh goes out for an extended time. Lewis is playing considerably more, but I just, even when Ashton got that little scare with him, I mean, it is the receiver room. Like, I'm not really concerned about it. You don't want him to go out, but you still have those feelings because of this room and how deep it is. But yeah, I hope this weekend against Samford, you get, Jaden. And typically you have 2 non-conference games where you're not just so strapped for, playing your best the entire game. Like, usually, your G5, your group of 5 game, which this was, the SMU game was when this was scheduled, you're expecting a challenge, but not to this, playoff team from a year ago that competed for the ACC championship. So normally you would have guys like that already had touches and already receptions, and then you pull that rotation back as you get into conference. Baylor just didn't have that luxury this year. But I still think that room is talented. I just think the top 4 guys plus Trigg are just so talented. It's hard to not just rely and lean on them.
Absolutely. So now that we're almost 20 minutes into this podcast and we haven't completely dove into Sawyer Robertson yet, it's kind of, I mean, what a performance. Like, that this was a masterpiece. Like, the way that he played in this game, clearly, in my eyes, through 2 weeks, puts him in a Heisman conversation. This guy is putting up insane numbers right now. He's done it against 2 very high quality opponents. He's not putting up 500 yards against, Western Kentucky or whoever. He was so good, so in control of this game. So, Colt, when I didn't do research on this, I'm not sure if you did research on this, but just kind of sitting back, I mean, from a passing standpoint, I mean, this has to be one of the better passing performances I've ever seen from a Baylor quarterback. I felt that strongly about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what games you can point to that are comparable. I mean, like I'm sure there's a Bryce Petty game, but 440 is not enough. Like that's a big number. Like I look back. So one thing I did look at. So Sawyer's now thrown for 400 yards in 3 consecutive games. The last Baylor quarterback to do that was Robert Griffin in 2011. He did it in 3 consecutive games. No other Baylor quarterback has done it, which that's over the span of 2 seasons, but that's LSU, Auburn, and SMU, who's obviously the playoff team from last year. This isn't Wofford, whoever and whoever. Like, this was 3 legit talented opponents, and Sawyer was phenomenal in 3 straight games. This one was, in my mind, his best game. And it was different than Auburn. It was different than LSU because he controlled the pace of the game with his passing. Like, he threw passes like I mentioned, the one to Josh Cameron. Like, there was a couple times in Seth Russell's career where I said, man, that was a throw that a lot of dudes can't make. Bryce Petty had some of those, but Sawyer made a lot of those types of throws in this one single game where you're just like, I mean, how do you defend it? Like, that was a really good throw. Kevin Jennings had the one in overtime that was just a really good throw and catch. But Sawyer seemed like he had one every single drive. And it was, and I'm looking at, his passing grade on PFF, which, these things are subjective, but like 77.4, but he had 5 big time throws. Maybe they're looking at his turnover worthy plays that pulled that passing grade down to 77.4. But I'm like, man, like 68% completions, 50 attempts, 440, 8.7 yards per attempt, 4 TDs, no interceptions, sacked once. Like, I mean, like that, like, how do you get much better than that unless you're completing 75% of your passes? So I don't know. I would have to look back through all of those exact numbers in the magnitude of the game. A top 25 AP team potential, they're trying to compete for an ACC championship. I don't know that there's a 1-for-1 comparison of this game by Sawyer.
Right. The one that I thought of, because it was against Power 5 opponent, and it was a game where they did not have a run game in the Browse era. It was Bryce Petty in the Cotton Bowl against Michigan State, where, I mean, it was very similar to this. Now, Baylor was up in that game the entire game, basically, until the end, but it was just throw after throw, first down after first down, big play after big play. It was against Michigan State, who, I mean, that was a really good defense, team. And he just picked them apart. So that was the game from a passing standpoint that I thought about. This one was just really special by Sawyer. I mean, the throws he was making, the timing on the routes, his connection with his receivers, it was very, very special the way that he operated this offense. And he never seemed like he was playing with just this, like, where things got out of control or things were moving too fast or you're down by 14 and this game's over. He was never playing like that. And so I think that's really special as well. Baylor fans are very lucky to be watching this guy. And I mean, he saved them from being 0-2 on the season because if this passing game doesn't connect like this, they probably lose this game by 2 touchdowns like they did the first week.
Yeah, Bryce Petty in that game was 36 of 51, 550, 3 touchdowns. Did have an interception, so maybe that's kind of the differentiating point. And Baylor lost that game. They kind of gave it up. Like, it was the opposite of the game that we just watched. And that Michigan State team was legit. Like, that was a really, really good team, better than this SMU team in my mind. And we've talked about SMU previously. Like, they're a fine team, and Baylor very well could have lost that game. But that team, they're not like they were last year, and they definitely weren't like that Michigan State team that with Connor Cook and that defense that they had. But yeah, like, Sawyer's just good, and like, we're gonna talk about him a lot this season. But these 2 games that he started the season with, even with the loss to Auburn, like, if Baylor goes on and is 9-3 and he's continues at this pace and he's not in the Heisman conversation, that's a shame. And that's because he's at Baylor and not Oklahoma or not wherever. Like, he's not a system quarterback. He's in a system that's a really good system, but he's not a system. I've watched a lot of system dudes There's a couple in the Big 12 that I can point to that throw for a lot of yards. Sawyer's much different than those dudes. He makes throws that the way he manages the offense is significantly different than some of these other guys. And until you watch them and compare them, you don't realize that. But he just makes throws that are not system throws, and that's what sets him apart.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So let's talk the offensive line really quick. Do you want the good news or the bad news first, Colt?
Oh man, I've already written about this. It's one of my pieces, and it's I'm still not sure what to make of this group, but I'm open ears. Let's go bad first.
Okay, so the bad news is they still are not moving people in the run game enough. And I understand that they ran to loaded boxes at times, but they are not getting the push consistently. Now, that did change late in the game. Baylor faced a little bit lighter boxes, and they had some success. But overall, they have problems running the football still, which is not – in this game, I was a little surprised because I don't think SMU is that good up front. I really don't. And they were missing their best linebacker.
They have big guys, but they haven't produced over the course of their careers that makes you think that Baylor should not have success. That's how I felt about it.
Everybody's got big guys. Everybody
has
their
dudes are pretty big. Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. I think that's if Baylor, and not to cut you off from your point, I just think if Baylor's not able to power move you, just displace you, they're going to have issues. So if you're just big and strong, that could create issues for Baylor regardless of talent level. So go ahead.
Yeah, the other bad news is I still have questions about Baylor's tackles, and that's kind of where I'm a little nervous, because I think we saw this week that they can at least hold up against decent pass rushers. But as we saw in week 1 against elite pass rushers, that they can't. And so Auburn's are elite, though. I truly think Auburn's pass rushers might be like a top 5 pass rushing group in the nation. I feel that strongly about them. And I thought
Keldrick Falk by himself is, if he played 60 snaps a game, that's difficult to defend.
Well, and I think Kieron Crawford is phenomenal. I think Amaris Williams, they have multiple guys that are just, they force you to not be able to block Keldrick Falk with 2 guys. And so I think that they're very good. And so in this matchup, SMU's guys were pretty good. They're not great, but they're pretty good. And I think comparable to what Baylor will face in Big 12
most
play.
of the time. Yeah.
And I felt like they did better. They only gave up 6 pressures compared to 24 that they gave up in the first game. But I still have concerns. The tackles have been a little underperforming, I would say, in this game and in the first game, obviously. So I think those are kind of the negatives that I've seen so far. But then flipping to the good side, I really like what Baylor has on the interior of the offensive line. And I felt like something came together for them, actually, when Colton Siraki started playing center in this game. Colton Price didn't play bad. He had a good game. But Colton Siraki played really, really well for a guy that was just fresh off the bench, having to hop in the game. All. Yeah, having to hop in the game and play. And
40 snaps.
Yeah, he showed a lot to me. Now, I don't know what that means going forward. I don't necessarily that means he needs to start over Colton Price. I think this is more of a future thing. But he clearly shows that they have depth on the interior of their offensive line, which I like. Omar played really good. Ling Yell played much better this week than in the first week. Again, felt like this group took a step forward late in the game. And I still like what they're doing up front, and they protected Sawyer really well on the interior.
Yeah, I'm with you on the tackles. I think that it's a give and take of where do you go? We saw, Sean Tompkins start at left tackle for the second half. Sydney was, whatever happened. I don't know what happened, but Sean played the first 5 snaps of the second half, and then they brought Sydney back in, and he finished the game. So Sydney didn't play well, PFF wise. But Ryan Ling-Yell, you mentioned him, 87 pass blocking grade, which was, I don't know if that was out of nowhere. I don't really remember him ever having that good of a game. I'll have to look back, pass blocking wise. Colton Siraki obviously was the highest graded offensive lineman in this game. He played 40 snaps, so it wasn't 15 snaps. He played 40 snaps, which they played a ton of offensive snaps. And I think he could have benefited from that because he was playing a defense that was probably pretty gassed. 100 offensive snaps. He played the last 40 of them. So you're basically, okay, and we're going to play a whole game. And then Colton's going to come in and play 40 extra snaps against his defensive front. So one, he's fresh. So maybe he benefited from that. Very well could have. But we've heard a lot about him and how talented he is. And it's a potential, maybe it's like, well, in 2026, who's playing, he's going to be on the field somewhere, you would imagine. Is he potentially playing guard or is he playing center? Yeah. Colt moves to guard. Like there could be some combinations like that. Obviously, that's looking way ahead. But yeah, I thought the offensive line, one sack. And that was late half or late first half or early second half that Sawyer got sacked? Or maybe, I don't remember. It was some random. And then outside of that, you didn't really think about the pass rush. So I thought that group played fine in that area for the most part. Schematically, they're protecting, their weaknesses. And we've talked about that so much. And but yeah, if there was a position, there's two positions on SMU's defense. It was their edges and their safeties that you just said, okay, they're pretty good. And they return. The edges didn't play a lot. They weren't starters last year. They played a lot. They just weren't starters. So you didn't know how good can they be? How good will they be when they're not playing with those other guys? But their production-wise was decent last year. So I thought the offensive line held up pretty well. I'm anxious to see what teams do when they're not able to be +1 in the box. Because teams, Auburn and SMU just said, we're not going to let you beat us with the run. Sawyer's going to have to beat us. So far, that's been fine. They lost against Auburn, but offenses still moved the ball. What happens when they go in against Arizona State, who just got pretty beat up by Blake Shapen in Mississippi State? Did they change that up? I think their defensive front, they're willing to play 5 unless they've had injuries. They'll be willing to play 5 and drop in coverage, so that could be an issue if they ever can't move the line. Beyond that, I think they're going to be pretty good. I think this group's going to be fine long term.
I sure hope so. I do think there's some challenges that are going to pose similar threats to this one. Arizona State, like you mentioned, Utah is also going to be able to challenge them and drop guys into coverage. So they got to get better. They do. They got to get better.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
As the season progresses. All right. Let's move to the defensive side here. So some shakeups, and I actually like the changes that Dave Aranda made in this matchup. So basically they decided to play 2 defensive linemen and then 2 edge guys the whole game. That's how they did it. They mixed in, some different bodies here and there at nose and whatnot. But in general, 2 defensive linemen, 2 edges, peso package, if they still call it that. I don't even know if they still call it that anymore with the changes that they've made. But Marion Winston played a ton of snaps. Matthew Fobbs-White played a ton of snaps. Those 2 guys were your headliners at edge. They also brought in Kyler Jordan and 4-star true freshman Kamarian Morgan. So got to see both those guys on the field for, I believe it was like 24 snaps combined between the 2 of them. So they played pretty well. And then on the interior, it was Cooper Lands played a ton. I think he played like 59 snaps on defense. And then they just rotated in nose tackles and different defense linemen because Devontae Tizino is still limited. Jackie Marshall was extremely limited. I think he played 5 snaps on the day. So they had to figure out a way to manufacture something. And so for the most part, it was Cooper Lands and Adonis Freelu were the guys that they played the most at those positions. But I thought it was a nice change by Baylor to try to create a little more havoc and get guys on the field that I feel like you were giving up something maybe in the run game, but you're also saying we're going to be more impactful when they throw the football, or more impactful when they do get in the backfield and make a play on the running back.
Yeah, I think at even one point, once DK went out, I think at one point I saw them playing a nose, and it might have been Adonis with 2 outside linebackers and then 2 interior linebackers. So they're basically playing a 1-4 defense based on actual positions with Winston and Matthew Fobbs-White. And but yeah, I thought the defensive front, considering all the limitations they had, held up decently well in the run. I think they got tired at the end when they broke off the long run for the touchdown. I think they were just gassed. Like they couldn't hold up on the defensive line based on the numbers that they were playing there. SMU made a couple of plays. He had the pass that he knocked down, so that was good to see. You mentioned Adonis Freelo playing 41 snaps was good to see. In general, and I wrote about this, but tackling grades wise, and I haven't just sat down and watched every single play, but tackling was actually really good in this game. And thinking back, I felt that way. I didn't feel like there was a ton of missed tackles, but you look up and down the grades, they had 6 guys with over 80 tackling grades. But I wonder if that is part of playing this peso package. I wonder if that's you have 2 guys on the edge with Matthew Fobbs-White and Marion that are playing in space a little bit better, and you're able to get guys down on the ground. Whereas before, you might be just running right by a defensive lineman to let a linebacker make the tackle, and then those guys are getting beat. I don't know if there's something to this long term when they get depth back, but if that group is a better tackling group, maybe Dave Aranda sticks with it. I really like Winston's athletic ability. He did have a sack in this game. Obviously, we know with Matthew Fobbs-White how athletic he can be, but it just gets so much speed in the game, especially you start talking about Keaton and Phoenix on the field together at times with a star like Kendrick or DJ. Like, there might be something to that, playing this peso package for long term that we haven't been able to see in the past, because I don't know if you could play Garmin Randolph and Steve Linton together last year too much. Like, I don't know that, but I feel like that you can kind of potentially do that more with Amarian and Matthew. And long term, we'll see. The depth right now on the interior defensive line is not good because of the injuries.
Yeah, I still don't think it's a formula for long-term success. I think you can get away with it in certain matchups, but I do think there are some other matchups that will challenge that a little bit more. Obviously, you would like to be able to start Jackie Marshall, Cooper Lands, Adonis, or DK, and then an edge. I mean, that would be ideal, but they're not able to do that right now. And so you got to get guys who you feel like are high quality players on the field. And that's what they did. And so get your best guys on the field. Amarian Winston had 3 quarterback hurries. Matthew Fobbs-White had 4 quarterback hurries. They got in the backfield and at least made life somewhat challenging for Kevin Jennings, particularly in the second half. I felt like they really kind of ramped it up after halftime. And that was a big thing because, I mean, Kevin Jennings was 10 for 10 in the first half with 1,000,000 yards. And then the second half, he was just 6 of 12. So they really flipped the script. Yeah, and that was huge for them, the adjustments they made and everything like that. Moving to that second level, Colt. So, well, first of all, we both have concerns still with the defensive line, right?
Yeah. At this point, it's just an overall depth concern. I think that group of being healthy, you start talking about DK and Devontae and Jackie, like now it's just like, well, crap, where are the bodies? I think if that group long-term can just stay on the field, I think it's a solid group. I like Auburn game notwithstanding, like Auburn's a freaking good offensive line. Like, just call it what it is. It was good last year. It got better. It has a really good running quarterback and a good stable of running backs behind them. That is what it is at this point. I think that group healthy is decent. Now it's just like they got to get back on the field. Hopefully this next 2 weeks, truly leading up to the Arizona State game, they can get healthy. I'm worried about that.
Yeah, I am too. I do think fully healthy, though, they are better than I think these first 2 games showed. I really do. And I know that people may not believe that because of what we've seen so far, but I'm telling you, they got challenged a lot these first 2 games. The 2 offensive lines they just played, I mean, you can argue that they're the 2. I mean, Utah is probably 1
Arizona
or 2.
State will be pretty good.
Yeah.
They didn't look as great against Mississippi State, but they're pretty good.
But they ran the ball well against Mississippi State. They just couldn't throw the football.
Right.
I would say that Arizona State, Utah, SMU, and Auburn are the 4 best offense lines on the schedule. And Baylor's had to face 2 of them without their best defense lineman. So I really do think at full health, I think they're much better than this. I really do. I think like substantially better. And I mean like potentially a top 5 group in the Big 12 if fully healthy. I buy it.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same group. I think you have to bring a guy like Adonis along. I think we saw it with Linus Noel last year. Just gradually bring him into his role, let him play his role. Obviously, you want SMU to do the same type of deal, but I think you get those guys playing their depth positions, and this group can be really good. They just got to stay healthy. I mean, that's it. There's too many old guys in that room, plus young talented guys, to not be a pretty good defensive line. So they got to get healthy, though. I mean, that's the sucky part right now. Got to do it. I mean, you got this week and next week to get pretty healthy, and I was really happy to see Jackie play. It was 6 snaps, actually. That just tells me he's going to be fine long term, even though, high ankle sprains are always scary, and you can't have setbacks with them.
Right. All right. Moving to that second level, the linebacker position. Man. Um, I don't know what this offseason was. Just this talk about the best linebacker group that Dave Aranda's ever had. But for the second week in a row, everyone except Keaton Thomas struggled. And I don't know what to take away from this. I don't know if there's just like something that wasn't seen in practice that's now just popping up on these game days. But guys are missing their gap a lot, and it continues to happen. There's missed tackles at the linebacker position as well. There's just a lot going on there that I just don't quite understand why it's not something that was corrected in a week, but it wasn't. And now it's becoming a pretty glaring weakness that either if Keaton Thomas is on the field, the guy opposite him is a little bit of a drop off. And then when he's not on the field, now you got two guys that are kind of susceptible to making mistakes. And we saw it again this game. I did not feel like the linebacker opposite Keaton Thomas was ever playing up to the level that Baylor needs them to be playing at.
Yeah. And I mean, then you throw in Keaton played the least amount of snaps that he's played in a game at Baylor since he played his season opener last year against Tarleton. 49 snaps. So I don't know I know people talk about a brace. I remember him wearing that brace last year some. He didn't wear it in the first game, but there's something that's lingering there that he's always had apparently that he's wearing that for. I'm not really concerned about an injury. Why wasn't he playing more? Was this just we're going to get these other guys as many snaps as we can in non-conference? Like if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it type deal? But I think it's talent wise. Like you see Phoenix Jackson running the ball. You see Travion Barnes getting that sack late. That was he covered a lot of ground to get to where he needed to get to sack Kevin Jennings. I think the fundamentals of playing in this Dave Aranda defense takes time, maybe for everybody except for Keaton Thomas. Like Keaton Thomas seemed like he stepped in day one and played really well. But to get to the level, Matt Jones, we saw him over the course of his career at Baylor finally settle in by his last year. So I think it's going to take time. And I'm kind of holding out hope for this group because you see the flashes of it. And then I think it's also important to just say this, and we just talked about the defensive line. If that group is not physically holding up and offensive linemen are getting to the second level, that creates a lot of issues as well. So I think there's a conundrum of multiple things that are an issue right now. With all of that said, until Baylor wore down against SMU, and I know it's like, oh, well, if you don't have the 40-yard run, SMU averaged 2.86 yards per carry if you remove that 40-yard touchdown run late. They did a decent job in the run, and that speaks some to the linebackers as well. So I think there's the give and take of, yes, this group is not playing up to their full potential. We heard way too much about them to not play to that level, but there's still something there. So I think you have to have hope for, let's get another Samford under our belt before we play Arizona State, who's going to run the football down our throat if we don't. This group has potential, and you can say what you want about Dave Aranda saying this is the best group, blah, blah, blah. I think it has that potential. It's just, can you maximize the potential? That's on the coaching staff to get them where they need to be at this point.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's your two biggest games, and it hasn't been like two biggest non-conference game, and it has been a weakness to me. And it has been on the defensive line, but like we're not talking about guys getting like the big plays. We're not talking about an offensive lineman getting to the second level and blocking a linebacker. We're talking about a linebacker overrunning.
Oh yeah.
So that's not even on the defensive line at all.
Right. Yeah. No. But I think if we are talking about it as a whole, if we're talking about the linebackers as a whole, if we're going to discredit them on overrunning the holes statistically, where are they also impacted by the defensive line? So I think you have to talk about both areas. There's I see Colin Reed over pursuit at the edge of the line of scrimmage so often, cutbacks, and it's there. That is a mental part of the game that they have to adapt to. They have to get there. And you're talking about Travion Barnes, Phoenix Jackson, and Colin Reed that haven't played in this system before and what their responsibilities are. We talk about the defensive line playing different roles than a lot of defensive lines in the country. They're really just maintaining blocks a lot of time, eating up blockers, and these linebackers need to go make plays. So I'm holding out hope for those over pursuing plays and overrunning the edge that is set. There's an edge there for you to make a play within because you have a guy turning them back in. That you don't have to do that. They have to learn that. And if that truly to me goes back on the coaches. You have to get this right this week. Going into the Sanford game, like, I don't care what Sanford does. You better be practicing the heck out of this. Like, this better be, we're not going to over pursue. We're not going to over pursue. Trust your guys on the edge. Trust your guys on the edge, because the 40-yard run was a great example of that. It wasn't anything special that they did. The running back literally hit the hole and nobody filled it. And like, you can't have that. Like, that's unacceptable, other than you feel like you didn't have, the guys aren't prepared mentally to play. And that goes back on the coaches. And that goes back on Dave Aranda. He is the linebackers coach in this group, and he praised this group. So now you have a week to get it fixed before we play Arizona State.
Right, and Arizona State's going to challenge that in a big way with a running quarterback, just like Auburn had. So we'll see kind of how that adjusts. All right, let's move to the secondary, a group that I talked about. Last week we talked about this after the Auburn game. They were not challenged in the Auburn game, and we knew they were going to get challenged more in this game. And I do not feel like they, I guess, I want to put this in the nicest way possible. They did not win the day. They got torched multiple times, gave up a ton of explosive plays, gave up a bunch of just big plays, and even gave up, some first down conversions on long third downs. Just, there were things that I didn't like. I will say, there were a few guys that did stand out to me, though, from the secondary group. And the three guys that really kind of jumped off the screen at times to me were DJ Coleman, who I feel like needs to be the full-time starter at Star. I don't think, Kendrick can come in for certain packages, but I think that he's got to be the guy there. He made too many plays. He made the biggest defensive play, in my opinion, of the game, the pass breakup on RJ Maryland in overtime that forced SMU to kick field goal. And then you also had Jacob Redding, who had the interception in the end zone. I felt like he played really well. He didn't play all the snaps. He was kind of part-time player with Tyler Turner, but he played really well when he was out there. And then I felt like Tevin Williams played really well also. I know he had the pass interference call that was not a pass interference at all. And he's clearly their best cornerback right now. So that's the good. Devin Bobby was okay. It wasn't a great game for him, but he was fine. It was, the other cornerback, LeVar Thornton, had one of his worst games of his career. It was just a super unfortunate game. The start off with a great play at first, cutting off the pass, hits him in the hands, ends up a touchdown for SMU.
Got a little excited. We talked about that one earlier.
He blocked a guy into Josh Cameron on the punt return that almost ruined the game for Baylor. I mean, that could have lost them the game because of how it unfolded. And then in overtime, he got beat again by Romello Brinson for a touchdown on a beautiful throw. His coverage was actually pretty okay. It was a terrific throw. But overall, he was targeted 5 times, and all 5 of those went for receptions, and 2 of them went for touchdowns. So it was a tough game for him. He was definitely targeted. And in general, it was a tough day for the secondary with all the yardage they gave up, all the touchdowns that they gave up. But at least there were a few bright spots.
Yeah, and I think, too, Carl Williams playing deep safety, which he was listed. I don't know where he aligned on that play, but he was deep on that play where he came up and, plays 5 snaps. I mean, you feel bad for the guy. Like, plays 5 snaps. One of those is that play. He's a guy they have to get healthy. And, at this point, like, do you trust him to, do you want him to come in and start over DJ? Do you want him to potentially play in the deep safety role? He played, I know he's a good player, and we've talked about him so much, but where do you play him? I like Jacob Redding at safety. Like, he made one-on-one tackles throughout that game. He's not going to be the fastest guy, but him playing free safety, you kind of feel comfortable. You feel like he's going to be where he needs to be. If he has to come up and make a tackle, he had 7 tackles, no missed tackles in this game. And SMU likes to play in space. He played pretty dang well. And not that, Tyler Turner didn't, but Jacob had the interception on the tight end. I know he's a tight end, but he made that play where who knows if anybody else in the secondary makes that play. Maybe Devin Bobby makes it, but Jacob made that play. He was praised by Dave Aranda after the game. But yeah, Jacob really stood out, and that's kind of been the trend for him throughout really dating back to the West Virginia game last year. Just kind of name keeps popping up. He keeps popping up. He's a sophomore, bigger kid. Honestly, I look at him as like maybe he could play star. Like he looks like that physical type of kid that goes in, not going to be the fastest, but can match up with the slot receiver if needed. But I like him back there right now. I really like. I'm with you. DJ had a big play. When was that play in the end zone? Was it the overtime play?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
I couldn't remember which one.
Yeah, big play. It was the play.
Turner played the ball, and obviously he played 42 snaps in this game, 5 tackles, no missed tackles. He just kind of become reliable, and he's a guy I hate that he redshirted or didn't redshirt a couple years ago, but hopefully this 5-for-5 deal, I would love to see him for 3 more years if that goes through. But I think there's pieces back there, and we've worried about the depth, but I think it's kind of coming together. And cornerback wise, Tevin's the guy. That pass interference was so cheap. Like I don't know what pass interference. Like I complain about college football officiating because of holds and pass interference. It's like you never know what's going to be called. That was one of the ones. Like what else can he do? The offensive player made all of the contact. He has his head turned back to the ball. Very easily could have intercepted that ball if he gets it around a little bit sooner, and he gets called for PI. He's their best corner, not really close. LeVar has that potential, and you just hope his confidence isn't shook because of that game. Obviously, they're going to talk a lot about it. The first one in the freak deal on the punt return, like how often is that going to ever happen? I don't know if I've ever seen it come out exactly that way because of a penalty. Baylor doesn't get the ball back because and it was. I don't want to call it questionable. I think it was a legit call, but it's also like everything had to go in SMU's way. The ball had to hit Josh first. It had there's so many things I just hope LeVar doesn't get his head down about that one because he's going to help Baylor sometime this season. He almost did the first play of this game.
Yep.
And his length and his speed, there's not a lot of guys that have that. So I hope he can bounce back from that game because Baylor's going to need him this year.
I do as well. And also, Caden Jenkins not playing in this game. It's also like, man, you had a great chance to make a big impact because he probably would have played a lot of snaps replacing LeVar because of how LeVar was playing. I mean, just being frank, LeVar's a young guy too. It's not, it happens. Like you have your games, right? Caden had his against LSU. So other guys had to come in. I think Caden could have had a nice impact in this game. Like, he could have been important for them.
They were back and forth 1 and 2 at that position. I mean, pretty much the entire offseason.
Right. And so you would have liked to have had him, show up for this game and play well. And so that was tough to not have him. Calvin Simpson-Hunt played some in this one, but it actually allowed Grundhoefer, the transfer, to play some. And he was fine. I think he played 10 snaps or
28,
more than that.
28 snaps and had a decent coverage grade too, 71.4. Yeah. He gave up 1 target, 1 reception for 8 yards, 1 tackle. And he's a guy, if you look back through his PFF history, like he hasn't played anywhere big, but he's been steady his whole career. And I'm sure that's what they feel like, hey, you're reliable. You're going to be there. Probably a quick twitch guy that you can just run with receivers, and he knows what he's doing. And 28 snaps, though. I mean, that was more than Calvin Simpson-Hunt, who got 13. Of all the cornerbacks, you had that's slot cornerback. Left cornerback, Calvin Simpson-Hunt, 13. Grundhoefer, 28. And so Grundhoefer basically replaced Caden in that rotation, and he did pretty well. I mean, I think you take that all day long from your 4th cornerback.
I liked him as the transfer. I know they took another one, KJ Makins, but Caldra definitely seemed to me like the one that could actually crack the rotation. Obviously, Calvin Simpson-Hunt as well, but I'm talking about in the summer, guys that they took late. And so good to see that from Caldra. I agree with you on Jacob Redding. I still would rotate him and Tyler Turner. I think Tyler still has shown in this game.
And he's young, and he's still young too. Yeah.
You can rotate those 2 guys and play them a lot. I don't know what to do about Carl. Again, I think if he's fully healthy, he's probably your best player at free safety, probably. But we just haven't seen it. And so, for him to come in the game, play 5 snaps, and immediately give up a 75-yard touchdown, it's like,
and he didn't look healthy chasing either.
No,
he didn't, and that was tough to see. And at that point, he might not have come back in the game. I don't know where his snaps were. I didn't pay that close attention, but he gave it up, and it could have happened to anybody in that instance. He comes flying up to cover a short, route on a scramble, and the receiver takes off. Jalen Cooper took off, and that's I hate it for him. I mean, but it's also 5 snaps. You can't you're in there for that short amount of time. Like you can't get burned that quick. Like that's pretty much different than LeVar playing 60 snaps. You come in for 5 and get burned that quick. That's pretty rough.
Yes, it absolutely is. So Baylor gets to 1-1 now, knocks off a ranked team, which is their first ranked road win since 2022, right? 0-4 in that time span. I'm not even sure if they had one in 2021, but they were 0-4 since 2022 in ranked road games. Now they're 9-8 against Power 4 opponents on the road since the 2022 season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they have been a much better road team than home team. That's continued to bear out. For whatever reason. So, Colt, besides that, as far as just looking forward, we'll talk about the Big 12 later this week, but just looking forward, how important was this win and how much confidence now do you have in Baylor potentially competing for a Big 12 championship, which was something that I think most people who cover Baylor, who follow Baylor, kind of expected them to at least be in the mix to make a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's still there in front of them. Like I even had, my original season predictions was 9-3, splitting Auburn, Arizona State, beating SMU. So like that, I mean, it's still there. Like in my mind, I think that you have answers to some things. You have good and bad. You still have question marks for some things, but every team has that. Like I think that's what's so hard to remove from the equation is, yeah, Baylor has issues, but other people have issues too. And they're, at this fan bases are talking about these same things for their own teams. Like who's going to expose us in this area that is our weakness. And so I think it's Baylor minimizing their weaknesses. But you look at the head of the schedule and maybe it's because they've already played Auburn and SMU with Arizona State so early, but Kansas State, I mean, just lost to Army. Oklahoma State got destroyed by Oregon. Oregon's really good. As always, they're going to be very good. TCU, a matchup that I still don't think we know a ton about their defense. I think it looks better from what they've put on tape. I don't think it's going to be anything necessarily like Auburn was, and Baylor theoretically should have put up over 30 points against Auburn. So the game's on the road. UCF, Cincinnati, Utah is going to be a challenge. At Arizona might be more of a challenge than we anticipated. The quarterback returns. It seems like they have something there. Houston offense still doesn't really scare me. So I think everything's in front of them if they can clean up specifically the defensive front. I think the secondary is going to be okay. Like I think it's going to be okay. I think it might be better than anticipated. Do we know what the defensive front can they live up to the billing? Offensively, I'm not really worried. I mean, shoot. Like if Baylor has to throw for 500 yards a game, and that's the route they have to go, they're capable of doing it. I think the running game's going to come along fine. Defensive front, defensive, linebackers, that group needs to improve drastically over the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the secondary needs to improve as well.
Well,
it
does,
I think there's problems still. And so offensively, I agree. I think I look around the Big 12, I'm like, who's really stopping this offense while also having a really good offense of their own that can keep up? Because, I mean, Baylor's going to score 30 on pretty much anyone, you would think, in the Big 12. I mean,
yeah,
there's maybe an exception here or there, but for the most part, I'm looking around this league and I'm thinking, Arizona State and Utah have to come to Waco. Baylor should score 30 at home. Should.
Yeah,
should. At home. On the road, it's like the best defenses they're going to play at home or on the road are Cincinnati and
maybe Arizona,
TCU.
Maybe. I mean, TCU. I mean, I don't know if we know. Like at this juncture, like based on preseason outlook, no one on the road is a major challenge defensively. But yeah, I still don't. I think it's so early. Baylor's in a unique situation because we've seen him play Auburn, we've seen him play in SMU, two above average. We don't know how far they're going to go this year. Above average teams, Power 5, Power 4 teams. No one else has really faced that yet. So I think there's so many questions out there. But yeah, I don't look at the schedule and say Baylor can't score 30 on any of them.
Right, and then I look at Baylor's had to play actual opponents, like you said, whereas most of the Big 12's played to one really bad opponent and one bad opponent or one decent opponent, depending on who you're talking about. But, aside from Iowa State, I don't think anyone's really proven that they can beat good teams. And I know some will point to Utah being UCLA, but I just saw UCLA lose to a bad UNLV team. So I think UCLA is pretty dang bad. I look at Texas Tech beating teams by like 70 points, and I'm watching those two teams, and I think they might be like two teams that don't win a single game all year, even at their level. So that is just a joke. And they get to play Oregon State this week, who just lost to Fresno State, who Kansas beat by like 30. So they're going to, again, just slaughter a team that's not in the Power Five. And then they're going to show up at Utah and have to play a real team. And that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that. I would never want Baylor's schedule, but I also would not want Tech's schedule this year. I mean, that's far beyond bad from what even Baylor played in the early Art Briles years. Like that's a pretty rough schedule.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So it'll be interesting. I think later on this week, we should probably talk about the Big 12, maybe do a podcast just talking about the opponents or whatnot. But I think in general, this is a monumental win. It keeps momentum for this season. I think this allows the fan base to at least buy in for the Arizona State game. Now, you got to find a way to win that game, but I do think the fan base is going to be bought in over these next couple weeks. You're going to have a great crowd for Arizona State, and you're going to have a great opportunity to, again, win in front of your home fans, which right now they're 4-11 at home against Power 4 teams since the start of the 2022 season. So it's time for that to change. I think this win provides at least a blueprint of who Baylor could be going forward. The Big 12 championship, a Big 12 title contender, is definitely still in the realm of possibilities, I think, for this team, despite their obvious flaws. Because if you look around the league, all these teams have flaws at this moment in the season. At least we think. I think you can make the case for one or two, but in general, I think most of these teams have shown they have some flaws that are comparable with Baylor's.
Yeah, and quick nugget before we get off here, the FPI prediction for Baylor Arizona State has now flipped after Arizona State's loss and Baylor's win. Baylor's 59.2%, and I don't put a ton of stock into this FPI, but it is a barometer that you can check. 59% to 41%, and that's I don't know where that started this season, but it wasn't that. Like that's a pretty big flip. And Sam Levitt's performances through 2 games have played a lot into that. He has not been that good throwing the football, which, for Baylor's sake, he can run the ball pretty well. So that's a little nerve wracking, but that's a team that we don't know without Cam Scadaboo exactly how good they can be. They have a lot of guys, defense on the front, offensive line returns. And we're going to talk more about them. And I don't want to overlook Samford, but this is the talking point for the next couple weeks is Arizona State, and it should be a good atmosphere. I'm open for another night game. Like I think it sets up well for a night game, and you don't think so?
Well, it's going to be 11 a.m. I bet.
Well, I mean, they just did. To me, in the last couple of years, this has shifted to an ESPN 2 type game, evening game, regional game that they put on so they can get a lot of TV viewership. I don't think it's going to be at 11 a.m. big noon kickoff or anything like that. And
it won't get game day anymore for sure.
Yeah. So I just don't know what, I haven't looked a ton at it. I just think it shapes up for an evening game. And that would be for Baylor fans would be awesome. Now for my 8-year-old that's going to go to the game, probably not. But those games are fun. I think Baylor could have a good atmosphere for that one.
Absolutely. So Colt and I will be back later this week to talk about all things Big 12. We'll preview Samford as well, but that should be a pretty short preview for us talking about probably some of the young guys that we're hoping to see get in this game for the Bears going forward. But be sure to check out all of that. Be sure to check out Sikkim 365 Premium. I have an article coming in the morning, the Monday Truth session, where I talk about the truths from Baylor's game and where they're at right now. Colt's got his article coming up as well in the morning. So lots of different news items coming early in the morning on Sikkim 365 Premium. So be sure to check that out. But for today, thanks for listening. This has been the Bearcast on Sikkim365.com.
Join Sikkim 365 Premium on a $1 for 1 month trial to read our experts' notes and insights. Know about high school commits, off-season transfers, coaching staff changes, and so much more before the rest. Also, download the Sikkim 365 app on your iPhone today to get instant notifications of breaking news, read up on the latest inside info, easily interact with other Baylor fans on our forums, and get alerts for anything published by your favorite staff members.